All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So I know I've been doing a lot of videos on PvE grinding and stuff, and I didn't forget about all of you life skillers out there, or people who are just looking to get into life skilling. So I guess we're gonna have a mini series because there's a lot of life skills to talk about. But today, I wanted to show you what gathering is all about and my favorite spots to gather. So when I talked about life skills in another video, I always said that most of the life skills connect to each other in one way, as in like you gather materials and then you use those materials for cooking, alchemy, processing, and so on. And so for beginners, gathering is actually one of the most profitable ones to do, followed by like maybe hunting and cooking. But gathering is also a very good entry-level beginner one, just because you collect a lot of materials and you can learn how to do other life skills just by having it. And or if you just sell the materials on the market, then I mean it's higher profit than the other ones. So before we get into my favorite spots, I want to show you some things you can get, whether you're a beginner or not a beginner, or you're just looking to invest into it. So as a beginner, what I would recommend doing is looking into Logia tools. You can actually buy these from a vendor, and I think the vendor is like right here somewhere around the Logia farm. But also there's an NPC that also sells like blue one, and I probably wouldn't recommend buying the blue gear because it's a little bit more expensive, and oh, they moved it, but anyway, there's a processing stone. Anyway, there's Logia, the blue gear, and then Monos. Monos being the currently highest best in slot life skill gear, and we'll talk about that later when it comes to actual gear progression. But here are some entry level things I would recommend to all of you. I believe they actually give this by playing on the season servers. So if you have one of these Stella Stones, it's actually really good. So one thing people don't actually understand early on is that life skill mastery is actually very valuable, so you don't use it randomly. And at high end, 100 mastery is the equivalent of like, I don't know, maybe 100 billion silver in gear. But that's at the very high level. But generally, for all life skills, mastery equals profit. So when you see that, it's always good. That way, if you have extra of these, be careful what you use it on, because these are non-rechargeable ones. But for the most part, as a beginner, you could also use things like, what are these? The life spirit stones, because it gives reduced time on cooking and alchemy and all the other stuff. But you also want the gathering item drop rate, which is amazing. So entry level, use these, and then once you get a little bit more familiar with what you're gathering and actually using the materials on, you can use the mastery one later on. So I believe most people should have one of these Floramos rings if you're completely new, or two if you've been playing for a while. And you get one from turning into seals on your season character, and you can just get a try one. So basically, these are the equivalent of a try Monos, which is actually very expensive. They're like 6 billion. And yeah, so other things I would recommend going into first as a gatherer is getting Liana's tool bag. I believe all you have to do is get to like level 50 or something. It's not really high, but the thing, you talk to Liana in Heidel, which she is like down here somewhere. And then basically you just answer a series of multiple choice questions, and then she gives you the bag. What it does is it allows you to store all the tools, whether it's a lumbering, all of these things. And basically we'll talk about that later. My favorite spots for a lot of these things. And also, before we get into that, gathering Lightstones, because this is actually something that I didn't really talk about. So there are Lightstones for all of these, and just as a beginner, you should just put 4 of the gathering XP ones into Lightstones that give like gathering XP. So these, and then you have 4 of them, and it's just a lot of extra gathering XP. So if you're a beginner, it levels it up faster, and then you change it on up later on. Lightstones or crystals, you could put these in here if you want to. I do think these are very expensive. So I think the vital crystals and the life crystals, they're nice to have, but I would probably not recommend it for a beginner. Some things I would recommend for beginners, though, is max energy plus 10 times 2. These are about like 1 million each, very easy to get. So you just 20 extra energy into gathering, and durability reduction. So when you're gathering, you could, gather longer without having to repair your tool. And I guess if you're a beginner as well, the extra weight limit in these crystals is always nice. My plan eventually is to just get more mastery and or XP, and then that would be really nice. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the important ones are max energy and durability reduction. Everything else is a bonus. So when you were to first start, you're probably going to have to pick out some tools you want to get. I would recommend getting the butcher knife, the Monos fluid collector, and the lumbering axe. These 3 are the most important because these are the most profitable. The bottom 3 are really nice to have, but they're kind of niche in terms of usages. So if you get them, you kind of already know what you want. And the rest of these are just like you can turn them into things for more profit faster, in my opinion. So after that, the clothes and the jewelry, accessories, whatever fits your budget. Monos is the best in slot, but the idea is to get as much mastery as you can. So Logia is fine. Mono's gathering clothes or Logia, also fine. And then we talked about artifacts and Lightstones. This is actually, in my opinion, the best in slot for all of you who are not beginners. It is a little expensive. The Fortune Stone is about 800 mil. Iridescent is probably also 800. And the Gathering Mastery is probably 1 billion. So it is expensive, but in my opinion, this is the best gathering one. All right, so with that said, if you can't get this tier thingy, another option is the Khan's Heart or the Spirit Stones that we talked about. And some buffs we could go in with is every day you get the Mercenary Scroll. You pick the Life Scroll. These Secret Books of Florin are really good. They give XP and Mastery, but we talked about how much Mastery can affect like profit later on. So I wouldn't just use these randomly. Do this when you know exactly what you're doing. And if you have extra Lara's tea, it's also, I think, for the most part, you should be using the tea when you're mount training or gathering. Well, I mean, that's what it's for, but like, don't just use it for the life XP when you're like processing, if that makes sense. Do it when you're horse training or gathering specifically. And then entry level things you can also get are the Verdure drafts, which pretty cheap, or you can make the Elixir of Flowing Time. These are also life XP, whatever fits your budget. And if you are higher up in there, the extra weight limit and stuff is always nice as well. And of course, seafood crown meal. Those are the foods I use, and the buffs. So first of all, anyway, with that said, my favorite life skill spots. So I'm just gonna go run through them. It would take me quite a while. So this first spot I'm gonna show you, you could do for fluid collecting and lumbering. These are both pretty profitable. This is also an entry level spot for beginners because you're right next to Heidel. And so let's say you're a beginner and your weight limit, or you fill up your inventory, you just run back to town. So I usually start over here. I put my tent down. This is where I put my tent. And you could just either fluid collect or chop trees around here. I go down this path, just pick up all the trees on the way. Then you go down here, pick up all of those, come up here, go all the way up here, bunch of trees down here, and then you go up. So keep in mind, it also depends on how much energy you have, but if you have the gathering mini game, the green thumb thing. You get it by doing the Land of the Morning Light quest. I don't know if you need to do the main story, but it's like a side quest anyway, but it does save a lot of time. So for me, for example, 576 energy before the thing came out would take me about an hour and 15 minutes. And then with it takes me like 40 minutes to dump all my energy. So then you take all these trees down here, and then you gather all of them down here, go down here, pick off all of those, pick those here, 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 get those. And then the last pack would be all the trees down in this area. And then by this point, you take the things on the top over here. And then this is like your stop point because you've got all the trees within the path. And this is actually a good route because by the time you get your horse back to town, all the trees will have like the cooldown reset. So if you have a lot of energy, you just reset it. And then usually all the trees should be off cooldown, and you can reset and keep doing this cycle over and over again. And I think it's also a good beginner one just because it's right near town. You could deposit everything in your storages and you're good. So that is spot number 1. Okay, so we're in Velia now, and we're about to go into the second spot. And I just wanted to make sure I show it on the map first once you get to the actual area. This one is very solid for people who have a butcher knife. This is a easy to do one because you just park your horse over here, and it's a giant circle. So you would actually get all these wolves down here, and then do a big AoE, get all the wolves here. And the respawn time, if you do it right, you should be able to get basically all of the wolves in this area. And it gives wolf meat, or I guess more blood if you need it. I think in terms of profit, the meat is worth more than the bloods when you're at wolves specifically. But this is also a very good entry level spot because it's right near Velia. If you need to put everything back in your storage, you can go there, assuming you don't have like maids or anything. And so I think this is a very good spot. It's close to town, and the respawn is pretty decently fast, so you can get everything good to go. All right, so that's spot number 2. You just get everything within the area, and then they should respawn by the time you get back in the circle. So I'm pretty sure I've had like hundreds of hours there, and me getting to Guru 27, it's just a time consumption. It's not really difficult per se. And the next spot I wanted to show you, oh, by the way, in case you didn't know, for that second spot, like right there, we're like within the cave-ish area in the middle. Next one I wanted to show you is near like the ancient stone chamber and the forest of seclusion. So this one is going to be for fox blood, and fox blood is actually pretty valuable because not many people actually do it. Maybe people do it now, but it wasn't as popular back in the day. So here's the rotation. I usually park my horse around like over here. I guess it doesn't matter. Let's just use this big rock as a starting point. Then you would go in a big oval. You see all these things over here. It doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise. It's the same thing. But then you see all these wolves around here. And then you just do a big donut and just keep going around. And I've actually tested it, so I can say that the respawn time is quick enough that when you do an entire circle for gathering, you can get that as well. And I guess if you wanted to, you can always just pick off some trees around here and more if you wanted to. But generally, I think the big loop that we just showed you over here is good enough. And just to give you an idea of where we are, we're by the Dim Tree Spirit boss, like right here. So yeah, this is where we are, Forest of Seclusion. All right, so the next spot I wanted to show you is down in Bear. So I'll see you guys in a second. All right, so we made it to Bear, and here we are on the map. So this is actually a notorious place that people go to do a lot of gathering. It's pretty popular. So the best tools I would recommend for here, depending on what your goal is it for profit? Then you're probably going to want butchering and or fluid. And if you want just fast XP, the Monos Hoe would probably be a good one to collect, like, I don't know, herbs and whatnot. So the spot that I usually go to is right around here. It's very close to the actual town itself. So, oh, there's actually someone around here. So you can see what this guy is doing. This is actually one of the spots I did as well. So you park your horse down here, and then you see all these deer and elk. You would basically go down this rotation. This respawn rate is actually really fast. So you get all these elk, and then you just go up and down the circle, and you're good to go. So that's a very quick one. You just park your horse, and then here it is, like right under bear down here. So yeah, the next spot I wanted to show you is... Alright, so we made it to the Shira Ruins. I know this is actually one of the most gloomy places in the game, but we're right here. If you were to auto path to the node and then just go down a little bit to where the trees are. So we're over here. And this one, I'm actually going to show you a little bit of the rotation, because right here, the things I go for is a little bit more of an advanced thing if you're thinking about cooking meals and stuff. One of the ingredients that you need would either be scorpion meat and I guess snake meat if you need it. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is scorpion meat is sold out. And there's 165,000 orders on it. That means you're gathering it yourself if you need it. And the same with snake meat. And, well, actually, you could buy snake meat, but it's also very expensive to get snake meat. So, I'm going to assume these are two things you're going to want to actually gather yourself. And I do actually use them. But I wanted to show you one extra spot. This is more of like an intermediate to advanced level cooking thing, but if you want to start getting your rotation set up, you can do that as well. I don't know why I gathered that. So what you're going to want to do, if you see like the abandoned houses over here, I usually park my horse around there. And so what we're going to be doing is following the edges of this thing, the rocks. And the reason why is because you could get snakes over here. And I would recommend butchering more than anything, and especially if you have the hedgehog pet, you're getting a lot. So see, like we just made like 39 of them. That's like almost 400k each. Not that you would be selling them, or maybe you are, it doesn't really matter to me, but you get a lot. And so another thing you're also going for is scorpions, and usually the scorpions are on the rocks. So if you see a rock around, you get those. So like rock scorpions give a bunch of these. And I think this is a good spot. There are other places for scorpions like in the desert, but that also involves going into the desert, where it is over here, at least it's you don't need to have a unicorn or a really slow horse for a majority of the time. And you could just, the environment itself is not as bad. It's just gloomy and rainy, which is also gross, but for the most part it's better than if you don't have a unicorn. So then after this, you get all of the scorpions and snakes over here. It's actually a very like high-end spot if you know how to gather it and get the meat and stuff. So it's like, it's very profitable if you know how to turn them into things, which I would recommend doing that instead of selling it to the market, simply because you know how to make a lot of money. So then the downside of this is kind of have to climb some rocks, which ultimately not a big deal. And then I guess there's more over here. You can leave those rock skin boars alone because they don't really give anything wild. I'll just show you, for example. So if you butcher them, what you get is pork. And like, you see how this one, I feel like a lot of meats nowadays, ever since the mini game came out, you can just buy a lot of the meats off the market. So I mean, if you need to gather it, cool, but I don't think it's like a high priority. The things you want are the big ticket items like the scorpions and the snakes. So that's why I wanted to show you this one in particular, because I know it's very hard to miss some of these. And even for myself, I might have missed a few that are just sitting under rocks. So yeah, we're over here. We went from, just make sure that you know, this is where we started, right? And this is our horses. And we just kind of followed a little loop. Some more scorpions over here. Also, you might not get as much as I do. I'm like Guru 27, but at some point, if you're at like Master and above, you're doing fine, realistically. And so you follow this. There might be a few more. Oh, you don't need the marmot. You could leave all of these alone, all the ores, unless you actually need it. You just want the big items. I believe this. The way you know is basically you just look at the rocks, and usually the scorpions sit on top of it. One over here. Nice. S rank. If you need any of that, cool. And then you see how we are basically back here. The rock scorpion already respawned, which is good. And so we're going back. Get another cobra right here. And so, yeah, you saw the loop once again. We're back at our horse. So now that I showed you the actual rotation, let me show it to you quickly. So you start where your horse is, right under the Shira ruins where the trees are. Follow the edges around here. Follow this thingy. Get all the scorpions and stuff over here. Go down. Follow this once again. All of them are respawned at this point. Go up the hill behind the huge rock. Look for all the important things are on the rocks. Do a donut, and you're back where we started. So that's an important one that I actually use. I'm happy to share it with all of you because I think it's important. And a few more things that I just want to point out as honorable mentions. Pilgrim's Haven. If you are looking to make crafting utensils, you're going to need a lot of rough stone. The best place to get rough stone, in my opinion, is the Pilgrim's Haven down here. And there's just a lot of rocks in this exact node. So you just like get to this node and you're good to go. And if you're looking for a lot of cedars, the important cedars that I go for is, where is it? Where did I put in Odraxia? Yeah, Thornwood sap is very, it's a valuable one, but it's just kind of all over the place. There's no set place I do. It's just how much I need for that time. Other than that, those are my gathering spots that I use on a regular. If you're looking for other like minerals and like coal or iron ore, generally the Medaya area is the way to go down here. But realistically, you could just get a lot off the nodes to the point where it shouldn't be a big deal. But anyway, with that said, that's the basics of gathering and stuff that I would recommend for beginners and a little bit of a tip for intermediate players. Also, I know one big thing that people also want before I head out is if you do any sort of hunting, Narcion is the place you go, because if you want like lion meat and or other stuff, you could get lion meat down in the desert, like following the path over here all the way to the top. Or you could just have a hunting character and you could keep that down in the Narcion area and get a lot of other goodies like the hides, horns, and leaving one there, because if you can get like rare meats by hunting as well. But if you're planning on gathering any specific items, a lot of stuff you can buy off the market, but some of the rarer ones that you can't, that's what I wanted to show you. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.